Hello, 7th graders. It's Miss Emfield here, and today we're going to learn who ate the cheese. So far we've learned a little bit about what the structure of DNA is, and now we're going to kind of go into how it can be used in everyday life. So for this activity, we're going to be looking at crime scene data, and we're going to use some DNA that was found at the crime scene to figure out who ate the cheese. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of an introduction and then give you guys some more information on what we're going to use to figure out who it is, who the culprit is. So here's our introduction. DNA isolation from blood, hair, skin cells, or other genetic evidence left at the scene of a crime can be compared with the DNA of a criminal suspect to determine guilt or innocence. This is due to the fact that every person has a different sequence. So we each have our own sequence of DNA. Scientists use a small number of sequences of DNA that are known to vary among individuals and analyze those to get a possibility of a match. DNA is isolated, cut using restriction enzymes, and sorted by size by gel electrophoresis. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be looking at a bunch of different DNA samples that are all of suspects who could have eaten the Queen's cheese, and then it'll get run through a gel electrophoresis, and this will make a little bit more sense as we go. DNA is placed in a gel and an electrical charge is applied to the gel. The positive charge is at the top and the negative charge is at the bottom. Because DNA has a slightly negative charge, the pieces of DNA will be attracted to the bottom. The smaller pieces move more quickly towards the bottom than the larger pieces. And then the DNA can be analyzed. So in this simulation, you will examine crime scene evidence to determine who is responsible for eating the Queen's special imported Lindenberg cheese. Yes, that is the stinky cheese. Not sure if many of you guys are much of cheese connoisseurs, but this is the best, most expensive cheese that you could possibly get. You will model the process of electrophoresis and DNA fingerprinting. So here's our Royal Guard incident report. So we had a Royal Guard who must have been a witness to the crime, and so they give us some data. So our incident type is theft. They ate cheese that wasn't theirs, and it was processed by Chief Wigman. That is our Royal Guard. And we are pending DNA results. We don't know who ate the cheese yet, and our other officers is Officer Lee Gaze. So the property code, rare cheese, Lindenberg cheese. The owner was Queen Elizabeth, and the cheese valued $12,000. That is some expensive cheese. We're going to figure out who stole this cheese. So we don't know how they got in to steal the cheese. No evidence of force on doors or windows. The cheese was allegedly stolen from the Queen's sitting room the night before the grand ball. The cheese was listed as a gift from a Manchurian diplomat. Officer Lee Gaze dusted up for fingerprints and found none on the table or doors. The maid claimed that they had been wiped clean earlier. The wheel of cheese was on a platform in the sitting room, and half of it had been eaten. Oh no. We took pictures of the half-eaten cheese and sent it to the lab for further tests. Edna N. Zyme, the lab technician, said that saliva samples could be taken from the teeth imprints of the cheese that was left behind. So they have some DNA that was left at the crime scene, which is our saliva, and we're going to get some DNA from that, and we are going to see which one of our suspects did, in fact, steal the Queen's $12,000 cheese. So here's our suspects. Suspect 1 is Princess Dibba Elex. So, description of suspicion. So this is why we think she might be a suspect. The princess was seen entering the sitting room earlier in the evening. She is well known for her love of cheese. Our next suspect is electrophoresis. Electra was recently involved in a relationship with the Manchurian diplomat that sources say ended badly. Her motive may have been to sabotage the diplomat's gift to the Queen. Suspect number 3 is Adna 9. Adna was the maid in charge of cleaning the sitting room. She had access to the cheese, so she could have easily stolen it. Suspect number 4 is Jen Trix. Jen is the leader of the local cheesemakers guild, the leader of the local cheesemakers guild, he may not have wished for the Queen Elizabeth to have cheese from anywhere but his own guild. So our crime lab data. So we have our crime investigator, R. Renee, our lab technician, Edna Enzyme. Our evidence was in a plastic bag with cheese crumbs. We're going to use DNA extraction, polymerase, chain reaction, DNA restriction analysis. So those are what we are using to analyze our DNA. After receiving the package with the plastic bag marked crime scene, the DNA was extracted. Because the sample was so small, the DNA was amplified using the polymerase chain reaction. We isolated the DNA from the 4 suspects and compared them to the crime scene DNA using DNA restriction analysis. So you guys are going to go on to Teams, and there's going to be a PowerPoint attached to your assignments, and I will show you guys that PowerPoint in just a second. And you guys are going to analyze the DNA, and you are going to splice it or kind of cut it up, snip it up, so that way you are cutting everywhere there's a CC and a GG. You're always going to cut in between the C's and the G's. And then we're going to count the numbers of pairs, and we are going to put them where they belong along this line right here. So I'll show you guys that PowerPoint right now. All right, so here's what your guys' PowerPoint is going to look at. So here we have our crime scene DNA. We have suspect 1, suspect 2, suspect 3, and suspect 4. So this is what we're going to be splicing or cutting up to see the different lengths of DNA using a chemical. This is what we would do in lab. We would add a chemical to these DNA pieces, and it would cut everywhere there's a CC and a GG. So something like this. And then we are going to put a line on here where it belongs on the gel electrophoresis. So this is what your gel would be. So what you guys are going to do is you're going to go up to draw, and I'm going to do this first one with you guys. You're going to go up to draw, click it, and we're going to use some kind of marker to draw on here, and we're going to make a line anywhere we see a CC and a GG. So we're going to just do this first one together. And here I see a CC and a GG. And because these are complementary pairs, you guys have learned about that so far. They're complementary pairs, so whenever there's a CC, there's a GG down here, and vice versa. So we're going to keep looking for another CC, GG. There's a CC, but just one G. We're going to keep going, and here's another one, CC, GG. I'm going to draw a line and cut that DNA. And I'm going to continue looking, and here's one more. Now we're going to count the pairs. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There is our 7. And then I already counted these ones, and I know there's 25 right here. So there's a 2, 5. And then we have 17 right here. I already counted them again. And then our last one, we have 4. So what we're going to do, now that we know these numbers, so we are going to draw how long they are. So this means that this is a shorter DNA splice, and this is a longer one. And we're going to draw a line on here to show where they are. So I'm going to start with 7. I'm going to find our 7 over here, go over, and this is for our DNA crime scene right here. So we're going to put it in this column with 7. So it's about right there. It doesn't have to be perfect. And we have 25, so I'm going to go up here to 25. Draw a line. I'm going to do 17 right here. And then 4. So that's going to be down here. And so you guys are going to do this for the other pieces of DNA here. Again, you're going to cut anywhere there's a CC and a GG. And you're going to count the number of DNA pairs or pairs that are there. And then you're going to draw where they line up on here. So suspect 1, you're going to put right here, suspect 2 right here, 3, and then 4. And then we're going to see who matches up with our crime scene data. So we're going to try and figure out whose DNA matches the DNA that was found at the crime scene. So go ahead and pause this video. You guys can go ahead and go through, complete this activity. Make sure to hit hand in once you're done on Teams, and then come back to me once you're done. That's the first half of our activities for today. All right, now that you guys have analyzed the DNA and figured out who ate the Queen's $12,000 cheese, we're going to dive in a little bit more into gel electrophoresis. So there's a link in Teams that you guys are clicking for the second activity called our lab. You might have to update your Flash player, depending on what your computer looks like. You're going to have to do something like that to get it to work. And then we are going to click our gel lab. So it's going to give us a whole bunch of different options, and we're going to click gel electrophoresis.
Local neighborhood has been the scene of several recent bicycle thefts.
All right, so as you guys saw, this lab will read to you as you go. So you're going to start by exploring the lab. So you're going to go around and you are going to click.
Buffer. Use the DVE buffer solution to help carry an electric current.
And so as you click each thing, it will do a check mark next to it right here. So you guys are going to go through. You guys can go through right now and pause the video if you want and go through and check out what all of our lab supplies are in order to do a gel electrophoresis in real life. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to go through all this on my own so that way I don't make you guys sit and watch me do it. And then I'm going to go on to our next step, which is going to be our procedure. All right, so as you guys go through this, it's going to prompt you on what steps to do next. So I've gone through and I used the pipette to load all of the different DNA samples into the gel. The gel got stained and then it got put in this light box right here. So I'm going to hit on and it is going to show me how far each of the DNA strands traveled in the gel when the electrical current was ran through it. So now you guys can look at the marker, and this tells us how many base pairs there are, and it's going to show us the victim and then our suspects. So we can try and match up whose DNA it is that lines up with the evidence. So it's kind of obvious here. We can see who we think is pretty likely to be our suspect. So here we can see how many base pairs this one is for suspect 1 and suspect 2. And then we have our victim. And we always want to have our victim's DNA in there because there's likely going to be samples of the victim's DNA at the crime scene. So if we are testing DNA and we see that our victim, we don't want to actually think that they're our suspects. So some bands of DNA that we find could be mixed in with the suspects also. And so we don't want to confuse that with the victims. So that would be whose bike was stolen in this case. Or in the who ate the cheese case, maybe the queen ate some of the cheese before the suspects got to it. And so we don't want to say that the queen is who stole her own cheese because we know that she didn't steal her own cheese. But we don't want to confuse her DNA with that of all of these suspects. So then you guys are going to go into your lab notebook and you guys can record the estimate length of base pairs. So that's this number right here of the DNA fragments found in the samples of the victim, the suspects, and the evidence. Estimate the number of base pairs by comparing each band to the DNA marker DNA bands. So that's just one way of saying you're going to use these lines right here to kind of guess what these lines right here are. So this is, you can just round. I would say it's probably 9,000. This right here, maybe 8,000, 7,000. This right here, I would say is maybe 4,000, 3,500, something along there. You'll just go through and you will type in what your guess is, and then you can go to analyze and conclude. So what I want you guys to do to show to me that you completed this activity is just send me a message on Teams and tell me who you think our suspect is who stole the bike. And then also you guys can send a screenshot of what you think the base pairs are right here. And if you guys get confused on this, that's okay. Just let me know and I can help you out. But this activity right here does a pretty good job of walking you through step by step on how to do the gel electrophoresis and then what to do to record your data. So again, you guys had two things to do today. You had who ate the cheese, and that was a PowerPoint that you guys did. And again, you guys were doing the same thing here, except you were drawing it on the PowerPoint. And now you guys have this activity where you go through the gel and you can see what's actually done in a lab in real life to see who matches evidence or which suspect matches evidence to try and find who is the culprit of a crime. So thanks for listening, you guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.